Okay, welcome to our Finance and Facilities Committee meeting of February 15th. And for purposes of the records, the school board members and present tonight are myself, Earl Pickle-Antonio, Deanna Manley, and Kara Coates. And we have three items for the agenda. And we'll start with the January financials, which I will say our interim treasurer is out of town at a family funeral. So she is not with us tonight. I did review the financials and we are sure in February we received our second half of tax receipts, but our general fund balance at the end of January was $21,784,693.25, and expenses are within our appropriations as estimated for this time. Bid note. Oh, yeah. Give you the wrong one. Sorry. 2 pages. That is not the balance as of 131. The balance as of 131 is $25,063,332.61. And again, the expenses are still where we were talking. I did note that our ESSER fund balances on this are negative. Is that because we have to seek reimbursement for expenses, or do they pay us in lump sums?
Yeah, I don't think it's reimbursement. So I'm not sure why that would be, right?
It is.
Is it?
You have to submit project cash request to ODE.
Okay.
So you upfront the expense, and then they
Okay, that makes
I noticed
sense
the same
then.
thing, but not having talked to Michelle, I'm assuming that that's what that
probably
is on several of the grants.
Okay, then that makes sense to me. Did anyone else have any questions on the financials as presented? Okay, and then I did notice on the agenda for Thursday night, we do have just one general fund related action item, and that is to establish the middle school athletics account, because that's a new program for the district. And so we will be moving $6,000 into a new general ledger account for middle school athletics, baseball.
Right.
And then we have lots of appropriations, but they're all basically government funds. There's no general fund items on that on the agenda for Thursday night. We have a large food service receipt of $600,000. So maybe if we can get background on that, that would be great to see.
Okay.
Anybody else have any observations or questions with regard to the financials? Okay, then we get to talk about tech. And I have to say, I found my technology folder, and from my first year on the board, they gave us a technology expenditure summary from 2011 through to 16. And in 16, the grand total, including salaries, was $1,376,265. So we've kind of gone up a little bit, right? So Matt, are you doing the presentation?
I am, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So Michelle asked me on Tuesday last week to prepare this, and I was out sick on Thursday and Friday.
Oh,
So this is a work in progress.
well, this is kind of a dynamic, right, spreadsheet. I mean,
Yep.
as you think.
So see that. I'll get that a little bit. So I made some slides about some of the larger, more important items, and then some notes going line by line through the rest of it.
Well, you can summarize if you want, unless people have questions.
All right. The first big item you might have noticed on the budget for this year was our servers and storage replacement. We had 300,000 budgeted. We've purchased, but it has not yet been delivered, a new primary server system which resides at the high school but provides services for the entire district. And that came in at 209,000, a little over that.
Good job.
And we applied for a grant for the video surveillance servers. So if we get that grant, then we won't have to spend the remainder of that 300,000. But if that grant is not approved, then we will have to get more bids and get some video surveillance servers. I know a lot of schools applied for that grant, so I'm not sure that our chances are very good.
When do you find out?
Last time I asked them that, they just said, we are currently reviewing it. They didn't give me any dates.
Is it for the state or is it?
It's the state of Ohio.
And this is going in the high school?
It will be for the entire district, but it'll be located in the data center, which is currently in the high school.
And where is it planned to be moved?
That is something I'll talk about a little bit later, but
Oh,
most
okay.
likely it'll be moved to this one.
Okay.
And I have a little update on the teacher MacBook project. Last year we purchased MacBooks for all the teachers, the first time ever. Before that, we only had MacBooks for administrators. And so we decided to do a 4-year lease, even though we paid for all of it out of the FY21 budget. We had the full amount in the tech budget, but we get some benefits from the lease. The biggest one being that last thing on there, that we have the ability at the end of 4 years, if we want to sell those back for $250 each and possibly roll that into a new lease. And we have purchased some additional computers since the initial 600. A lot of that is new hires. And some of it is that we decided that psychologists and related services should also get MacBooks, and they were not on the initial plan. And I believe we're planning to hire some more new positions, so we might have to purchase some more. You can see our current status there. We're doing pretty good on repairs. We only have 8 that need repaired and 1 that's totally destroyed.
Now, I don't remember, when did those get deployed to teachers?
The end of last school year.
So have you gotten much feedback on?
We've got some feedback. I'd say the majority of them like them or happy with them, but we still have, of course, those some teachers who don't want to give up their desktop. They don't want to give up their new MacBook either, but yeah, some teachers don't want to give up that old desktop computer. Here's a little bit more of the damages. So about $2,500 in repairs, just 1 total loss, which is different than what we predicted. We predicted we would have a lot of total loss computers. That's typically where somebody spills liquid on the device, it's a total loss. But instead, which works in our favor, we're seeing broken screens, which are fixable. So far we've only spent under $4,000 in repairs, where we thought repairs and replacements, where we thought it might be closer to $13,000 a year. So we're doing well on that.
So do you pay for those out of that line item that's the, I think there's like 110,000 in it?
The repairs,
Protection plan fees?
protection plan fees are only used for repairing student
Students,
devices.
okay. This is our,
That's the next big item I have on here, student Chromebooks. It's always a really large purchase every year because we do purchase 2,000 a year to maintain our replacement cycle. Because we have these 1-to-1 grades 1 through 12 with grades 1 through 5, keeping them in carts in the classrooms, grades 6 through 12, taking them home every day. And this is the estimate right now. It may be more than this. It may be more per device than usual because I've seen prices going up. We don't have any official quotes yet or anything. And also, because of the way some of the expiration dates have fallen on the updates for some of our older Chromebooks, we have 2 years worth of them expiring at the end of this school year. So it might be possible that we have to purchase a few hundred more, like maybe up to 2,400 or 2,500 instead of the usual 2,000, or we might run short in the elementaries where our oldest devices are.
is there any like ability to stretch that at all?
There is,
I mean, as I look at the 5-year forecast, that general fund of 230 might become very difficult.
right? As we get the elementaries updated with new Chromebooks, you might be able to get ones that'll last a little longer. Because when you purchase a Chromebook these days, it comes with, it tells you when the updates are going to expire. And you can purchase them now that go through 2029. And I don't think that would help us too much at 6 through 12, just because of the amount of damage and wear and tear that they get being sent home every day. But it's possible that in future years, if we buy those long-lasting ones for the carts and the elementaries, that we'll need fewer new ones in the elementaries every year.
That's good. We're just gonna need that.
And here's a chart that makes like mass confusion. I don't know how better to illustrate it. This is basically showing where the green arrows are where the new Chromebooks go, and the red arrows are where the used ones go. So you can see that this year's seniors, of course, turn them in, and then 11th and 10th grades, and this year's 9th grade, all keep them. But then next year's 9th grade gets new ones. It's the same thing in the middle school, 6, 7, and 8. Current 6th and 7th graders keep them. 8th graders will turn theirs in because they're getting new ones as 9th graders, and then 6th grade gets new ones. So hopefully going forward, I kind of want to standardize it, whereas every year 6th and 9th gets the new devices. And years past, it's kind of been like spread all over the place who gets new ones, but I'm trying to kind of get the regular pattern going.
I think that's good for people too, right? Like the users to know.
Yeah. In the school, and the teachers and librarians who help us replace the broken ones and so forth. It'd be a lot easier if it just said that 6th graders and 9th graders get new ones. Then I have a little bit here about our E-rate budget. We have $1.3 million to spend through FY25, and that's pre-discounted. So if we spend 1.3 million on E-rate eligible projects, we'll get half of that back from the federal government.
So what does that entail? What are our qualifying purchases?
Network infrastructure, including Wi-Fi.
Oh, that's right there. Sorry.
So I really hope to use the bulk of this the last year of our window for the infrastructure for the new high school.
Smart.
And also you have applications out right now for the both wired and wireless networks, as well as backup power supplies at the High Point Blacklick editions. But I think that high school will be a pretty big project, so hopefully we can use up all of our 1.3 million and get the the maximum reimbursement from the government on that. All right. I'm going to try to share another window here. We already talked about serving the storage and the switches. The only switches we're purchasing are for High Point and Blacklick, and those come out of the construction funds. You can see on the firewall, I didn't move it there to 22, 23, or it might actually belong in FY24. It looks like we are going to have to replace our firewall a little sooner than I hoped. It's just the hardware can't keep up with a lot of the new security protocols that have come out to inspect traffic going in and out of the district, to protect against viruses and phishing and malware and so forth. It's not able to run those advanced features that we'll want in the future.
When did you think you were going to do it?
I think we had it out on FY25 or 26 before. It was on FY25. And then wireless, you can see out there on 25, 26, that's when the new high school will be opening. And that's when I would like to replace all the wireless throughout the entire district. That'll use a good chunk of our E-rate money there, because these are after discount on this. So I expect that to be about 500,000 for the entire district.
So that 250 is the district's portion, the other piece E-rate, and it's to do everything but the high school?
The entire district, including the new high
Oh,
school.
including the high school, okay.
So Matt, is that the total amount of the 1.3 E-rate, or you plan on using more than that 5 something? For
That-
high school?
That 500,000 will be it'll count against our 1.3 million.
Sure, sure. How much, I guess my question is, how much of the 1.3 million do you think you'll spend in 2025
In 2025,
on the new high school? Or maybe you don't know yet.
I-
You're still trying to.
it'll be that, about 500,000 for the entire district, the Wi-Fi, but the wired infrastructure will most likely come from construction funds.
Okay,
And we'll do like we do at the other buildings, where we pull that out of the construction project and buy that hardware ourselves.
yeah,
So we'll still get the discount, but those things typically don't show up on my budget. Those would be on Scott's.
so Matt saved us a lot of money at Lincoln Elementary by taking that on ourselves and doing the tech rather than having the construction firm do it.
Great job.
So
Yeah,
we did
exactly.
we
We'll
did
take that, right?
this same thing with furniture, you guys remember?
Yeah.
It was a huge effort, but it saved us quite a bit.
The next note I have is on the phone system. For years on this, we've had the phone system out there in the future and just push it forward every year. And we actually have the amount of $600,000 listed on this thing.
A what?
$600,000 to replace the phone system.
Mm.
But the payback period on that would be ridiculous. It's not really, I don't think, ever going to be worth it to replace the entire phone system. And this year, we actually renewed our phone system licensing for the next 3 years. So you can see marked in blue there. We can review it again to see if it's worth changing. But for now, we'll just keep replacing phones as needed, keep up the maintenance on the system itself. And I think that's probably our best way forward. I even called some competing companies, and they admitted, like, oh no, you're not going to save any money by changing. Go ahead and renew your licensing with your current system. So that's what we did. Down a little bit. And AC and generator, I kind of marked things in blue that were kind of unknown. This AC and generator budget was originally put on there to replace the air conditioning and generator system in the high school data center, as well as some units that are in this building at Clark. But with the likely move of the data center to Clark, we really don't have a good idea of what that will cost, or if the current systems here will need to be replaced or upgraded. But that's something we'll probably have to bring in a consultant on, see if the IT rooms in this building are already suitable for that use or not.
Is that something that can be absorbed in the phase 2 costs and taken out of general fund?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think Matt's going to save us quite a bit of money on the wireless project, that he's going to do. So I love the way Matt's thinking about this, about using, government E-rate funds to kind of fund the infrastructure. And I'm sure that there's, he's going to, so whatever he saves us is going to be significant. And I think, Mark, there's a way to kind of look at that.
Well, and the plan for Clark Hall has not yet been developed yet. So we can begin to plan for AC upgrade for your computer rooms that are going to find its way into this building.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure if we can use ESSER funds for those kinds of things, but I mean, that might be another, the Clark Hall piece, right?
Can we go that far out?
Yeah, that's the trouble, right? I think it's 23
Timeline.
is the deadline, so I don't, yeah.
Yeah, it won't be there.
It won't work.
Yeah.
24. They have to be spent by 23, right? So,
The last round is a 3-year.
yeah.
The next thing out here is Google Workspace, which is like our Google Drive and Google Docs and Google Meet and all those things. Traditionally, that's been free for us. But then during the pandemic, we paid for some upgraded features, specifically the expanded Google Meet security.
Yeah.
And Google Meet extra features like moderation and so forth. We have, we plan to use ESSER funds through FY24 to continue that subscription. And then if we choose to renew it after that point, that's what that $20,000 per year is forward on that one. The next line, internet filtering. We got notice from Meta that the cost will be going up, but they didn't tell us how much. So that's just an estimate in there of 25,000.
Because they don't have enough money. Meta.
It sounds like Meta used to like subsidize it a little bit, but now they're going to pass on the full cost from the vendor.
Nice.
The big section, the computer section. First, we have labs on here. On my that's got out of order, not in order, the same order of the spreadsheet here.
So it was in fiscal year 21 that we had backed up, and in fiscal year 20 got a great deal, right? So we didn't have the expense in fiscal year 21.
Right.
We
That-
bundled it in 20.
That year, I believe we purchased probably 4,000-ish Chromebooks.
Right.
So computer labs, that includes things like music tech and digital art and business. Mostly things in high school, as well as parts of specialized laptops they use in this building for robotics and so forth. And it used to include things at the middle schools too, like their Fab Labs and their Project Lead the Way. So those have been migrated so that students can now use their own issued Chromebooks. We don't have to purchase specialized labs for them anymore. And for
Is that what cut it in half?
yeah, and it varies a lot. So the plan right now is that FY22, we're using that $10,000 to replace the music technology lab. That's only 12 computers in there. And then we have basically one lab per year going forward. We have business, digital arts, Clark laptops, Fab Lab, and then FY27 will be music tech again. We'll be up for that again. And support staff, those are computers that are basically for people who aren't teachers or students. That's central office desktops, central office laptops. The next thing we're going to be doing with that is upgrading monitors and desktops at central office for those people who use desktops, as well as the desktops and monitors at the front offices and all the buildings, like the main secretaries and clerk typists. And then we'll also have to do some Chromebooks for aides and AIs and those support staff who aren't issued a teacher Chromebook, but do need some sort of a mobile device for when they're working in the classrooms. And here's student Chromebooks I already talked about. This might have to change. We're still going through the numbers on exactly how many we'll need this next coming school year to make sure that the elementary isn't low on devices. And actually last year, we ended up using ESSER funds to buy Chromebooks, ESSER and PI money. And we didn't purchase the full 2,000 last year. We only purchased 1,800. And that might be part of the reason that we're a little behind on our numbers this year.
I get a quick question, is it okay? No.
Oh,
We can
absolutely.
have early, so I
That's
wasn't
the-
sure if
that's the
we're
purpose,
at that. In a week and a half, I'll know the answer. I don't today. Do we have anything built into student fees for like a user fee for Chromebook usage or anything like that?
What we do have is a protection plan where for $40, it covers 2 repairs, up to 1 complete replacement. And I believe we have about $110,000 in the fund where we collect those things.
That's exactly right.
And that's not only the protection plan, also when we bill students who don't have the plan or who have exceeded the plan, we bill them the actual cost and put that money into that account as well.
Got it. Okay, perfect.
And then we pull out of that fund to do repair. They work with a local company that does some repairs, and then we have a contracted worker who does some repairs on site as well.
Okay.
And I think at next month's board meeting, we'll be asking to transfer some more money out of that, the 09, I think it is, where it goes into our budget, because we need another purchase order with that repair vendor. We've used up the $40,000 that was approved at the beginning of the year.
Thank you.
While you're at Student Chromebooks and looking at your next thing, I just have to share, I was volunteering in a Royal Manor 5th grade class, and they had a student who 2 weeks from moving here from Japan and knew very little English. But there was another student in the class that would type in a translation on her Chromebook. So the new student could keep up with what was being said. And then as we asked questions, she would type in the answer. And it's amazing. Amazing. Just,
Great.
can you imagine? It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that's why the tech costs have gone up.
Yeah, exactly.
We have student iPads, which are used in kindergarten the most, and then also some special ed and other special programs like the speech classes at the high school use them to film speeches, and then EL uses them for special EL apps and so forth. We have about 600 of them in the district that were purchased back in FY17. They were actually leased back in FY17,
Right.
like a lease to own thing, just like the MacBooks. And those are now falling into the category that Apple calls vintage. So it's like, so we just don't know. We don't know when Apple will pull the plug on those and stop updating all the security updates and so forth. And when they'll stop supporting our apps like Lexia and so forth. It's crazy. So I put in here, I just assume that we'll probably do a lease very similar to the one we did in 2017, spread it over 4 years. That's where that number came from. Teacher MacBooks, the original plan thought we had to spend $11,000 a year just in broken ones. That hasn't been the case, but we have spent over $20,000 already this year just for new positions. And I expect that we'll see some of that next year as well. So that's why there's that 20,000 in there for next year. And then when we get to FY25, we can make the decision, do we want to hold on to our MacBooks another year, or do we want to sell them back and start a new lease?
Is our lease over in 25?
Yes.
Okay.
So remember, if we use them, then the $250 goes away, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I think we can turn them in, right, for $250, which 600 of them, that would be a significant.
We would, except the cost of new is way
Right.
more than 250 of the item.
We don't even know what it'll be, right? So, yeah. Might
It's
be
like-
interesting. Stretch it out. How old will they be then?
There'll be 4 when they're eligible to be sold back. 4 years.
Yeah, they're still pretty good.
In our timeline, right? They're still young.
Yeah, this is 4 years old. So
Yeah.
it's still.
And I think I estimated this 130,000 a year, assuming that we would sell them back and get a new lease, and that at that time, our fleet will have grown to 700 instead of 600. But of course, I don't know that we'll still be able to get the 0% financing and no fees and all that like we got last time, but hopefully. Not many changes down here under service agreements and support contracts.
It's weird to see them all in one list. You know, we see them come through on the board agenda piecemeal, right, as we're,
Projector bulbs should be going down as we replace projectors with the TVs. And that was the one thing I skipped over earlier was the interactive TVs we put in Lincoln. We're currently evaluating different brands for High Point and Blackclick and going forward. It's been difficult to evaluate them because the one brand that we ordered 6 months ago just arrived this week.
oh geez.
And then the other brand sent us a defective unit. And so we're still working on that. And we had hoped that there would be enough money left in construction that High Point and Blackclick could get all new TVs in every classroom, not just the renovated classroom through construction, but it looks like we're not going to have that extra funds. So I think I'll probably use this year's budgeted amount for TVs to fill in those buildings and complete the rest of those buildings. And then after that, it would be just based on how old the projectors are in the buildings. After that, I'd want to do Goshen and Royal Manor. I think that's all I have.
And so each year you use money from the PI levy. It looks like it varies year to year.
It's been
350, right?
350 for a while now. I think.
Oh, that's right, because in 21, we backed it up to 20. It was 0. So yeah, it's going up. And if you add the labor, it's what, another 700,000? Oh, 800 for personnel. So the investment in technology is do you think you'll, I mean, of your actual spent, do you feel like of fiscal year 22, you're going to come closer to the 2.3 million? Or 2.1 million total?
Yeah, I think so.
It's more like an all-in 3 million investment. That's doubled since 16.
Double from what?
I think that's about what it was in 2016, including salaries.
Oh,
No,
16.
2016 with salaries was 1.3 million. This is correct. From the treasury.
So what year did we go 1-to-1? I think that's what you're.
It was, I think it was 2017, 18.
Yeah, and I don't have that number.
Yeah, so.
That's the cost of going 1-to-1 right
Right.
there.
Yeah.
All the
Back
tech
into it.
support.
Right, and thank goodness that we did.
And thank goodness we did,
Right.
exactly.
Maybe I was thinking of 2017. That's
Yeah.
I think that's the year when it would have shifted, yeah.
right.
Yeah, right. Well, I always appreciate the very detailed spreadsheet and the long-term planning. Because it's just,
I like the little comments in the, when you scroll in the box.
Some of those comments might need some updates, so
That's
some of those have been in there for years.
It's okay. I like them.
Still relevant.
Yeah.
so what would be your biggest concern? Like as you think of the next 3 years?
Increased cost in Chromebooks.
The Chromebooks?
I hope the prices don't go up too drastically.
I know you probably talked to other tech directors in other districts. What do you feel that we're doing well that may be better than other districts?
I'd say keeping up with the classroom technology and actually starting to put in the new touchscreen TVs. That seems to be what a lot of districts are doing right now. And I
Okay,
think we're keeping up with them. We have, Lincoln already done already. And then we'll have 2 more buildings hopefully done. the end of this first construction project.
That's good. Good to know.
I think historically, Matt's humble.
That's what I was gonna say.
But
If you could post it.
Yeah, but historically, I think the district has had, in tech, a vision to kind of move to one-to-one. So I think we were, close to one-to-one in 15, 16, and then the board supported a purchase to move fully one-to-one, 2017, I think 18. And that served us really well because we had the process in place and the shifting, made a decision to keep them in kids' hands so that they had them for a number of years, so they belonged to them. And then when the pandemic hit in March of 2020, I mean, on a dime, our tech team was able, I think, the governor made his announcement March 13th. Last day of school was March 16th. And I think by March 18th, you guys had deployed all the elementary Chromebooks. I think that Friday, the 13th, right? You were looking for boards everywhere. Every elementary student got a device to work at home. And I think just that doesn't happen on a dime like that if you don't have a history of planning for it well in advance, a couple of years in advance. And then in the one thing you talked about, Daphne, when we shifted the 350,000 from PI from 21, FY 21 into 20, you guys had a relationship with a vendor and were able to get Chromebooks when they on the market, they didn't exist. And so that enabled us to, so I think it's really important that the replacement cycle, as much as we can afford, right, that we stay up with it, because that's what enables us to stay current, and it's what enables us to not miss a beat with tech. Because I think Chromebooks, they've gotten more robust, right? They've gotten more durable, but after 4 years, I think they break down a little bit.
When they're in kids' backpacks every day, they get worn out. I think another thing we do really well is work with the teachers and with great technicians like Gina here, who go out to the classrooms and help the teachers with all their issues and help them get the most out of their devices.
How many people like Gina that do we have doing that?
Or
4? That's terrific. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember back to when Daphne and I first came onto the board, and it was right after the district took back technology. And right, I'm sure Ed remembers this too with not good memories, but the number of complaints that
When it
Daphne and I
was a private
heard
company, yeah.
from staff who were unable to have those issues,
Right.
helped by anyone. It's like completely, and I don't want to overspeak for staff, but I don't hear about that anymore.
Right.
Yeah, good.
I actually go for my Google training tomorrow. So maybe I'll.
Ed, do you have any? No comments? No. Well, that's probably maybe good. No complaints, no complaints.
But when I hear you talk about TVs at Blackwood, I'm really worried. I want to keep my smartboard done.
yeah, I think a lot of people.
Staying in that room or it's coming with me.
Are we going to give that option? I mean, if teachers have built lessons around them.
You can
Oh,
still,
you
yeah,
can use the smart technology through the device,
Yeah.
through the TV.
you can still plug your MacBook directly into the Clever Touch and use Smart Notebook.
Old habits die hard for old people.
The other rooms don't have a smartboard though.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. All right. Well, then it'll bring parity once they all have them, finally.
Right. Once the project is done, none of the rooms will have smart boards. They'll all have the new Clever Touch.
And you're okay with that, Ed?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And those run multiple software like Promethean, right? Smart.
Yeah, Promethean is a competitor to this.
Yeah.
Competitor to Smart. It's
Right.
like Smart and Promethean are probably the two most expensive.
Right.
And then we're looking at like 4 other brands that are a little less.
Yeah.
And the problem with all of those TVs, no matter what brand you buy, whether you buy the most expensive Smart or the lowest cost, which is a new
Right.
line, is that the built-in Android operating system is not going to be viable for the entire 10-year life of that TV. So what we're looking at doing is getting what's called a Chrome box and attaching that to the back of the TV, and then that component will be replaced after 5 years, even though the TV probably has another 5 years left. At that point, you can update to the latest Google operating system.
Yeah. So that brings up another thing our tech department does well. We were in a user group meeting talking about the future high school, and we were talking about whatever device we choose, right? We'll have one of those Chrome boxes with an Apple TV. And when I didn't hear this today, but it'll actually extend the life of the device because you're using those.
And we found that all of those manufacturers include basically the same computer inside those, and it has a lot of good features, but I don't think you can depend on that long term. They don't seem to update them for the entire life of the device.
Wow.
Yeah, and the Apple TV would be just like,
I'll let somebody else
there's-
understand.
yeah, that's what we're using now to stream wirelessly. Is that little Apple TV sitting there?
Where?
That little black box right in the middle there with my messy cables going to it.
Oh, it works.
So-
Anybody else have questions for Matt? Technology? Anybody in the office? No?
Nice job. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, I think I'll.
You go.
They'll turn our meeting on when you get in your car though, right? I'm just
Oh.
kidding.
Probably
We
on.
put one of those little black boxes on top.
Yeah.
Okay, so next is, actually, I should say phase 2 construction updates. Unless there's something to be updated on phase 1.
Yeah, so,
That's what,
Oh, they must have fixed it.
Yeah.
I printed it yesterday.
so I want to introduce Mark Ogden from Turner Construction. Mark is our owner's rep, and he works closely on these projects with us. He helps us work with our architects, our design team, and our construction team, and brings us all together and helps us solve difficult problems. I learned a little bit about value engineering today. I think you guys kind of know what that is already, but Mark's going to kind of talk about the phase we're in at the high school, middle school, where we are at the elementary school, and where the budget is, and a number of other things. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark, and I'm sure you guys will have some questions.
sure. So, thank you, Steve. One of the things that I wanted to level set for everybody, I know some of you have seen some of these slides before, but we've got a larger audience. So just wanted to provide some definitions to some of the terms that you'll hear through this process, and perhaps some that you've already heard, but have wondered about. So what you're looking at here are the traditional design phase deliverables that take a project from concept or programming all the way through to construction, administration, and ultimately activation and occupancy. I was going to go through each one of these with a little bit more robust definition than just the pictogram there. So programming is really the initial step. And what we're trying to capture through discussion and user group meetings is, what is the big picture? What is the vision of the project? We have discussions on what is the general budget for the project, how malleable is that budget, and that's where it really all starts. The next phase is schematic design. Schematic design is really where you're starting to put pencil to paper and use straight lines and really evaluate how a building is meeting the objectives of a particular district or client. Square footages are established, adjacencies, the mass of the building, the footprint is generally is defined at this stage as well. And if there are some site implications, those are also traditionally memorialized and finalized at this phase. Design development, this is where things begin to get detailed. So we figured out where the rooms are, we figured out how the building is going to stack and how things are situated. But now we're talking about, where does the door want to go? What kind of wall construction are we talking about? What about the window placement, the size, the functionality? We get a little bit more detailed as it relates to some of the mechanical and electrical and plumbing systems. Matt's world with technology, we're beginning to put a little bit more meat on the bone, and the devil's in the details and DD. So our conversation goes more from big picture ideas into those kinds of details.
And that's what we're starting right now for high school.
That is correct. And that's what we're in the middle of for the middle schools as well. This is just various components that make up the design development deliverable. This is a time-consuming process, design development, because, like I said, the devil's in the details. And then the last stage of documentation from the architect is the actual construction documents. This is what our guaranteed maximum price is traditionally based on. This is also what subcontracts that this construction manager at risk will be bidding off of and awarding to. And then it's also what we end up getting, what we build off of. So I already talked about GMP, guaranteed maximum price, and the actual bid process as a function of the construction documentation deliverable. And then the last phase here is actual construction administration, building the building, doing the quality control steps to make sure that the building is getting built exactly as it was designed, and it's meeting expectations. There is a process called commissioning that will take place towards the end of the project to make sure that the building is performing from a building efficiency perspective on mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems. So those are the definitions that I wanted to run through really quickly. And I will now just kind of revisit where we are on the middle school. What you're looking at is a Gantt chart schedule. It's a way in which we present timelines in the construction industry. We approved SD back on January 20th. And now we are officially in the design development phase. The budgets for the middle schools, let me pull those up real quick. As they were approved back in January, were $10,765,000 for middle school west, $9,810,000 for east, and $8,335,000 for south. With this blue bar that we're in, everything is holding water. But once that date of 3/25 hits, we'll be receiving that design deliverable from DLR, our architect, and we're going to do a budget alignment exercise that will take several weeks. So here's where we're stress testing this design against those budget values that we approved. And what we'll be doing is we'll get a final number from Russilli. They will get some market input from subcontractors. They will also benchmark against historical cost data that they may have. Turner will be doing the same thing. And we'll have a reconciliation period. Oftentimes, projects are over budget, and there is a value engineering process, a bit of a tail to this. So these budgets are fixed and finite. We want to honor them as well as we can. So that means that a lot of discipline has to take place week in, week out, from now until that document set is delivered, and to minimize our value engineering effort, and make sure that the design is hitting exactly as it should through this process. That's done through user group meetings. We've had a couple user group meetings at the middle school level. Russilli is encouraged to attend, and their role in those user group meetings is not necessarily to throw a penalty flag if they see something that is veering off of, outside the guardrails of what we can afford, but delicately bring it to the attention of the team, and say, hey, we need to address this, we need to confront it. We don't want to wait until March and April to do that. So that is where we are with the middle schools and where we will be heading over the next 2 to 3 months. This next slide just kind of flags critical dates. We talked about SD board approval taking place January 20th. The next DD board approval is anticipated to be May 6th. Now that assumes that we will have everything penciled out and on budget for all 3 middle schools at that point. And then looking a little bit beyond that, in June, we'll have several GMPs taking place, all in preparation for middle school construction start date of April of 20. Is that right? No, I'm sorry. 9/1 of 22, September 1st, 22. On the high school, same kind of story as far as where we are. It's just a few weeks behind the middle school. And these durations are also a lot longer simply because we have a much larger building. We are officially in DD by way of the board meeting last week on February 8th. We will have a DD package coming from DLR 527. Again, we'll have that budget period where we're stress testing the design against our budget of $158 million. And then construction documentation will take place. While this is occurring, we also have some early site activities taking place, most notably early site construction and stadium or early site packages, long lead items, and the stadium reconstruction. Similar to the middle school, these are the critical dates with the next board approval falling on July 6th.
Can I just ask a question? So there's no permitting needed for the stadium to be rebuilt?
There is permitting. To simplify this schedule, Daphne, I just have the final permitting noted in that gray bar. Permitting will be taking place essentially from the date we get permitted drawing CDs, which will probably be right in the May-June timeframe. And then that will allow us to commence with construction August on the site.
But we've talked also, Mark, about meeting with the city about, previewing
Yeah,
what is coming so that they have an idea and they can insert thoughts and ideas.
yeah.
So that-
This week we have had a fair amount of correspondence with the mayor's office and her team. They're eager to get involved and help build momentum, which is wonderful. We're in the process of trying to schedule those meetings, and we're looking to have that happen sometime between now and the 23rd. So this will be kind of a preview for them. It will be an information session. Here's what has been approved, but here's also our timeline to refine and massage that particular design. The next, what we're hoping to learn from them is what is their process, what is their timeline, and what are their needs through these initial review periods.
So I've heard from two councilmen with regard to the access off of Rocky Fork. When is that negotiation and session taking place? Because the ingress egress plans all rely on it right now, and it's not been addressed. They knew nothing about it. So how is that being
We've
approached?
talked with their engineers.
I understand the
Yeah.
engineer, but from the council perspective.
I don't know when we'll take it to their council to discuss that. We'll have to work through the city staff and see how they want to address that. If they'll wait until they look at the overall project.
So maybe we can ask them, because we're working with their team. And so when maybe their team, Scott, will let us know when they will take this to council and what needs to be done in between now and then.
Yeah, because this next meeting will be just as much of an information session for them as it will be for us, in understanding their process and timelines.
Do you think it would be beneficial to do a presentation for the council members? I just feel like they feel like they're behind the 8 ball already, right? And because they found out about it at a public session. So,
I think maybe
Well-
we take the lead from those, from Lori, from the mayor.
Yeah.
From their staff to see how
okay,
they.
I would just
what the
encourage
best
you
way
to
it would
explore
be
that.
to Get that information to them.
Yeah, that's definitely something we can try and understand from them when we meet with them.
So you're anticipating the permitting for the stadium to take place when?
Detailed schedule.
So Scott, from my learning, you guys have been working with the city team of engineers. And so that's where you're like kind of taking, that's their kind of course of action is like they're the first step. And
Yes.
then they help determine when it goes. to
Yeah,
the-
so, we've started with, the elementaries, middle schools, and along the way, we talk about, here's what we're looking at for the high school. No plans are yet, but, we'd like to have an exit out to Rocky Ford. They all thought that would be a really good idea, but now it's, once we have a design and have an understanding of what the footprint's gonna look like, then that's what we would talk about that. I mean, we've studied it based on traffic study. They have that data, so now they'll put it together and give that to the city too, how they think that traffic that coming out that way would either help us or hurt that traffic on Rocky Ford. So they'll be able to tell us that.
So they do the traffic studies?
We have a consultant that does the
Okay.
traffic study. They then submit it to the city, who then sends it to a third-party consultant who takes a look at it, and then they give their recommendation back to the city, and the city comes back to us, and then we talk of, what's the best way to get this done.
No, don't get me wrong, I like the idea of the Rocky Ford thing, it's just, there's some blindsided feelings, right?
From the council
Yes,
members, yeah,
yes.
no, that's good
Right.
intel. I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that.
Can I just ask a question about the traffic study? Does it basically just go by the streets, or does it also entail the traffic flow for within the school? Like how long it takes teachers to get in and park and leave, and the students and families, or is it just mostly focused on?
I'm
the
not sure I
public?
can answer that question on what they all take into it. I know that they've come and they use cameras to count cars. So they've set them up at our exits. And they also set them up on the roads in the intersections. So we went down to the car wash intersection, past, on Havens Corner, past the school, all the way down to Speedway and,
Almost the same Matthews, right?
yeah, almost the same Matthews. And then on Hamilton, we went to Gatsby's.
Okay.
So that's the length of it. And they just use cameras to cover all those and count cars at different times throughout the days. And then they take that data and mix it in and come out with, hey, you know what, maybe we might have to change this stoplight to be a little bit longer at this intersection. Or potentially we need to elongate the turn lane. And, maybe they need to change the signal, how the signal works itself.
Okay.
It is
So
primarily
it's
focused-
focused mostly on traffic flow, public access.
Public plus,
Not really the school.
they do count the number of
Teachers
cars
and-
that are exiting our property.
Okay.
But I think they
But
would
the-
count like the outflow and inflow, so that how quickly do they get off Hamilton? How quickly do they get off and onto the property and flow around? Because I think right now, we have significant issues.
Right.
People are leaving home 20 minutes early so that they
Right.
can And so, you know,
Yeah.
they take that into account, right, Mark?
I think their primary focus is on the right of way and the impact to the, what is envisioned or what could potentially happen in the right of way. So they're not going to evaluate, you know, our sidewalk and drive and parking layout.
That's up to us and.
That's up to
That's up to
us,
us.
you know, but where they will be, what they will want to know is where are you entering this site and where are you exiting the site and what are those loadings?
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Police, fire.
Yeah, and they may be curious, you know, and well, okay, did you ever think of this, you know? They may have some good ideas through that review, but I think their primary focus and their area of influence is in the right way.
Okay, thank you.
Daphne, the planning and zoning process for the site and stadium is scheduled to begin June 16th.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the high school?
I have a question, and I don't know if you have the answer yet or not, but I know that we had some conversation about pushing back a little bit the date of the tear out of the stadium. Do we know yet what that date is? I'm being asked actually by some parents of football players they're just trying to start their planning for events. I don't
Yeah.
know, do we have a date yet?
So we've talked to Rasili and they have agreed to allow us to have the stadium from August all the way through Labor Day.
What is the
And so
specific
the
date, though,
date,
that
the
they're-
last date we would be in there is September 5th, which is Monday,
9/5.
Labor Day.
Okay,
And then we would turn the stadium over to them the 6th of September.
okay,
And so what that means on the back end, it's a 12-month build for the stadium. And so they would deliver it 2 weeks later inside of, you know, around Labor Day, a year from that. And the good news is the football team in 23-24, the first 2 games were away.
Yeah.
So that might help, you know, that.
yeah, I mean, I heard very positive feedback from the parents. They just didn't yet know the exact.
Yeah.
So that's helpful. Thank
So
you.
we met with students that, I think they were mainly captains of fall and some spring sports, and we talked to them and they talked about how important it was to have a senior night in the middle of the field with their family, the GO. And so I think we can accomplish that with our teams you know, up until Labor Day. And our games will be played at Audubon.
With spring sports that have the option if they wanted to do a senior
They
night
could,
early to have
sure.
them on the stadium.
Yeah, it could, absolutely. I think it was really good to talk to the kids about how important that was. And I did go on Lincoln Live right after we made that decision. So the day after our board meeting, and I talked about it. And it's been hard, you know, it's a hard situation. But I, you know, appreciate everybody's patience as we work through it, you know. So we're still working through things as well, so.
They're in planning state. I mean, I don't have to tell you, this is a group of, not just the football parents, but all of the parents are eager and active just to have firm information so that they can plan and do the very best for the
Yeah,
kids.
yeah.
So I think it's helpful. What I have heard is that there was a lot of anxiety because there was so much uncertainty, but having some firm
Sure.
information is very helpful so that they can start focusing on those
Yeah.
plans.
Yeah, I think the kids were, when I talked to them, I didn't talk to the same group, all of them, but several of them. I think they would have preferred to be on this field the rest of their senior year, for sure. But we appreciated Vasily, you know, allowing us to kind of change the date a little bit, and you know, we're working on having turf out at Blacklick. We have to do some value engineering to kind of make that happen for the soccer team. The drainage is very poor out there. And, you know.
Are we getting an update on the Blacklick athletic process tonight?
I don't think so tonight, but we're still working on some things.
Well,
but-
what I can update you
You can
on
update
is
some.
that the design team is working on having documents completed in April 30th, I believe. They need this April 1st. Yeah, okay, yeah, April 1st. And this includes some of the enhancements that Steve is talking about with the turf and trying to make it as usable as possible for this fall.
So we're gonna find the money for that?
Rather try. Yeah, absolutely.
If I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, so I have a current middle schooler who runs track, and like practice starts tomorrow. So they're looking forward, to next year, staying in high school. I mean, track at the high school, that's typically at the football field, right? So what would that look like? Would there be like the option to be at one of the middle schools for practice? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah,
And
so
we
we're
just would
looking,
never.
we're looking
There
at,
are, yeah, there are no, we don't actually have.
we have
any.
one homie, we
One
have
home
Hannah
track.
Relays.
That's
So, but we're looking at middle school west or middle school south for that. So.
Do you know when that calendar, so
Both of
there was
those
a
tracks were
calendar that was
recently
shared last
redone.
Tuesday?
And
Sorry.
tell her that both of those tracks were
For high
recently.
school,
Yeah.
though?
Yeah.
Recently
I mean,
done.
I only see middle school stuff, so.
No, I mean, at the meeting, at the public meeting.
Oh,
that
okay,
we
sorry, I
had.
thought you meant the track.
No, sorry. Wait, there's too
Yeah,
many people
Yeah,
talking.
we've got the cost all planned out
Hold
and
on.
Jason's working with us. Sorry.
I want to answer Rebecca's
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
So there was a spreadsheet that was shared at the public meeting.
Right.
That was an outline of where each of those sports would be practicing. I was just gonna ask if we're any further along in finalizing.
A little bit, yeah. So I mean, our immediate thought for track was middle school west because the track is brand new.
Right.
The south track isn't that old, and I think that the high school coaches prefer to use south because they can use it almost as a warm-up to jog over there. It's so close, and so we may not have transportation needs in the same way. So we're working through that. Wanted them to be on a new track, but they think the track at south is new enough. So, we had these plans on the spreadsheet and ideas, and we're talking with coaches, and they're giving us other, kind of nuances to our thinking. And so it's working out nice. It's collaborative and
So my overall question was, do we have any sense of when all of those details will be finalized? Like in the next couple months?
no, sooner than that.
Okay.
Yeah, next couple of weeks.
And then once that is shared, not just for track, but once that is
We'll communicate it
finalized,
out
that'll be
so everybody
communicated
knows.
to eighth grade parents,
Yes.
parents of eighth
Yeah,
graders. And,
absolutely.
okay.
Yep.
Can we post it on the district
Yeah.
page?
Sure. Yep.
My other question had to do with traffic. So I have kids at High Point and at East. We don't get the bus. And we're super excited for all of the additions at both of our schools.
Yeah.
But traffic for High Point is really bad.
Yeah.
Not in the morning, but in the afternoon at pickup.
Yeah.
Because as the buses are pulling out, people are parking on both sides of the street.
Yeah.
And then construction workers are trying to get in and out.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
Yeah.
And so my concern is that at East, it's already a mess and we haven't added in construction yet. So is there a plan? What is the plan for East, I guess, is my question, as far as navigating the traffic, because you can't widen quads. And I mean,
It's
High
gonna
Point
be.
actually I feel like High Point actually has it down better than East does. Like drop off in the morning at High Point, those kids know you get out of the car. Like, at East, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been sitting here for 5 minutes. Why is no one getting out of their car? Like, this is the drop off line. And
So you're saying middle school kids take longer to get out of
to do everything. I'm like, you've done this for 6 years at High Point. How do you not know how to do this now? Like,
Yeah.
how are we forgetting? But so my concern is, it's already crazy
Yeah,
kids are just everywhere in the parking lot trying to get to cars.
I mean, it's gonna be really complicated, and what our construction project manager is doing is developing a logistic plan about where they're gonna lay down their materials, we're gonna route traffic. Like you said, it's already tough, and they're studying it, and we're gonna have to live with a little more pain for a while.
What's
It's not
the
gonna be
overlap?
perfect. What's that?
So middle school construction begins September 1 on Middle School East. When does elementary construction end at High Point? Do you know what that overlap is?
Well, it ends,
It does overlap.
Right, the gym isn't done.
yeah, the
until,
gym
like,
doesn't end
Christmas,
until winter.
Right, that's the overlap.
So
Yeah.
from September until December.
I'm
Yeah.
just thinking like the middle school, how much of that side parking lot, I mean, almost every inch of that side parking lot is
Yeah.
used during pickup.
Mhm.
I mean, cars are double and they loop around, I mean,
So the construction at East.
I'm talking about east,
Yeah.
Is
yeah,
gonna be at the north end.
okay.
Yeah, so it's still gonna be hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know, Royal Manor has it down to a science. They have somebody, a teacher, somebody with a walkie-talkie
They
as
do.
cars are pulling in and tells, they have on their visor, maybe you guys already do this.
I've tried getting High Point to do that. 'Cause I have
It
voiced
was
my
a finely
concern
tuned
of
machine.
Accidents with kids, like,
Yeah, the trouble with High Point is,
Yeah.
what Rebecca described is the parking on the street, both
Yeah.
sides.
Yeah.
And kids getting out.
and then the buses can barely even squeeze through. And so if you're trying to come up, like every day, I try to come up the hill,
Yeah.
pick up my kids, but I have to time it just right, because if a bus is coming down, we're playing chicken, because there's literally nowhere for anyone to go. Because there's cars on both
So-
sides.
Does somebody have a traffic expert that maybe
Well,
we could
in the-
get them?
So in the new plan, there will be no parking on the.
Well, there's signs that no one's supposed to park on the right, but they still do, because there's no place to go.
We're gonna,
If you're in kindergarten, you have to get out and take a kid. So it's just,
we're gonna have to just enforce it
right.
down both sides, because there has to be a turn lane that we need to put in for High Point. And then once we get the drop-off loop around the new parking area, that'll help get more cars off the street and make it a little more, we'll make it better. anyway.
And like I said, in the morning, it's fine. It's just that afternoon. I live obviously close enough that I don't get a bus. And if I want to park to get out of my car, I have to leave like 40 minutes.
Really?
40 minutes to go to park, not on the street.
So what I'm,
Before it, and so I don't do that. So my kids have to stand and wait for me to pull around, because I'm not willing to leave my house 40 minutes ahead of time.
so what I'm hearing is the elementary kids want to get away from their parents. The middle schoolers want to stay with their parents. So
That's really opposite, right? though?
You would think it would be the opposite.
The middle schoolers don't want to wear jackets, so they stay in
Stay
the
in
car
the
as
car
long as
for
possible.
long as
and They're
possible.
freezing when they get
Bingo.
out.
Uh-huh. Right.
That's it, I think.
But they don't have
Well,
lockers.
I think there's
so
probably
getting to wear a
organizational
jacket is like-
methods that could
Yeah.
Yeah,
make that
Yeah.
better.
yeah.
If you could learn from Royal Manor or Chick-fil-A, then.
Yeah.
So Royal Manor has a few less kids than they used to
Okay.
have, so.
They have what?
They have a few less, so they're under 400 students. I think
It's helping.
they have a great system now.
They have a lot less space.
They have a
And
lot
but
less
that's what I'm
space.
gonna say. They have a lot less space to
They
work
do.
with too,
Sure.
so I'll
do they-
balance
It's
that
the,
out.
it's
Do they
the
have
confluence of
numbers?
the middle school right there with the elementary.
They do.
Yeah, we have that with Chapel Hill and Middle School West,
But
right?
not at Royal Manor as well.
I know, but there's Chapel Field has a lot more street space and parking lot
Yes.
space than Royal Manor could even dream of.
Yes.
Rebecca's
So,
asking.
so for pickup, do like the kids have a number and the parents have it in their window?
They flip down their visor and it has the family name, and so they have 4 stations
Right.
queued up, and they go to the station and they pull the next 4, and they go in batches of 4, like it's a military drill.
I mean, I've mentioned that at High
Beautiful.
Point for like 7 years. And now with the construction, like the fence is right against the sidewalk, so like when I pull in, I'm having to make sure a car isn't swooping in front of me, because that happens. And then I gotta make sure a kid is not on the edge of the sidewalk, otherwise I'm gonna take them out. It's just,
Sounds like an
it's just so
SRO needs to
dangerous
show
to
up
me.
there.
And I have to do it every day. There's tons of us doing it every day, and I've always said, it's just gonna take one accident.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I mean, kids are running in front of cars because their parents are like, double parking, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like.
Maybe we need to
We've
send
had,
the SRO over.
we've had the police department go up and
Oh, yeah,
talk,
and it
because
helps.
it's not
every
illegal.
day.
I mean, it's not a legal situation to park the way they're parking.
But I mean, is there someone that could do traffic control? So we have parent
Direct-
volunteers, but it is really difficult to get a regular.
It's a pretty thing.
And Mr. Sheets is amazing,
Get working.
but he's retiring this year, so I don't know next
I
year.
know,
we don't have
that's
Mr. Sheets
horrible.
Directing the traffic.
Okay, you're still going.
So anyway, sorry,
That's all right.
Yeah.
I
No,
was
that's
worried
okay.
about.
So the
traffic.
period of overlap though is that September to December period when.
That's
both will
right.
Still be,
Both,
Yep.
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so the last thing that I was gonna share here is we're trying to give, do a better job communicating real-time cost feedback as we receive it. And wanted to share where we are with the elementary schools. So the GMP that was signed off, the GMPs, I should say, that were signed off last fall included an allowance for scope that had yet to be documented completely. In other words, the scope that needed to be procured early on and kick off construction, the work that's taking place right now, was finite and part of that GMP. There was also some scope that was based off of a SD level estimate because the plans had not yet been developed in order for us to release the whole kit and caboodle, right? So it included an allowance for that scope that was still being documented and designed by the design team, okay? The GMP allowances for Black Lake and High Point totaled $8.7 million. And that's the direct cost total, okay? So that would be the trade contract value. What you're seeing below that line is a percentage-based indirect cost. So Russilli, as the construction manager at risk, they're entitled to percentage-based reimbursement for fee insurances and just fee and insurances.
I
And
thought
there's
we
very-
did our own insurance.
Yeah,
Well,
well, it's the.
Yeah, there's, what this includes is subcontractor default insurance, which is not part of the OSIP premium. So,
I thought we were avoiding it with those kind of costs by doing the district health policy.
not subcontractor default. So what you avoided was general liability. So Russilli is still paying workers' comp. They are still paying subcontractor default insurance. They still also have to provide a guarantee on the project called a performance payment bond, which is another one of those percentage-based costs.
They have to provide it, but we're paying for it.
Yes, it's a reimbursable expense.
That's interesting.
So that brings the allowance total to just over $9 million. They put those packages out on the street and received some initial bids back in December, and they shared those bids with us in December, and the value of the same scope, not the same scope, but the anticipated scope, ended up being $10.43 million as compared to 8.73. But that was just a bid day analysis. So what they needed to do was they needed to meet with all of the subcontractors and really understand what their bids included, whether there was opportunity to make combo buys, the whole, we call it scope review, scoping them out. And they finally got through their first pass of doing that, and they shared their update with us last week. And we're still dealing with a significant overrun along the lines of just shy of $2 million direct costs, which when you add the percentage-based indirects, it's 2.67. 2.067, I should say. Now, I want to draw attention to the big red draft up top, okay? Because having bids come in over is not unusual. I alluded to it early. This is a big number. I'm not going to be, try and sweep that under the rug at all. It is significant, and we've got a lot of work cut out for us. Rusili did a nice job tracking the costs and has a pretty good story explaining, here's what 8.7 got us, and what's in the documents right now is 10.7. So we're using that story to help inform potential value engineering and cost-cutting strategies, but then they're also important to create a more robust list leveraging every one of their resources that they can, okay? Some of the story includes a very elaborate exterior wall system, not something that you would see, but the actual construction and composition of the assembly behind metal panels. It's a very efficient system, but it goes way beyond what we're used to seeing here in Central Ohio, and it's a significant premium. So we think there's a good opportunity there. Another opportunity that we discussed last week is revisiting the IT scope. And making sure that it is right sized for day one needs. It doesn't include any kind of long-term planning type scope elements, i.e. two TVs everywhere, So we're setting up meetings to really drill down and work this $2 million number down as much as we possibly can. I wish I could tell you with a high degree of confidence that we'll get all of that back. I don't believe that's going to be the case, but it will certainly start with a 1, and hopefully it's a 6-figure number. That's our goal.
So of our 5 million contingency, at this point right now, we're 2 million gone. We have 3 million left for the rest of the project.
If nothing happens and we accept this value and we fund that overrun with contingency, that is a correct statement.
Pardon?
Your statement is correct.
If we don't value engineer.
If we don't work that number down.
Right. Mark, is there any opportunity with HVAC to look at in the BE?
HVAC is challenging because it's one of those critical path items where we've got super long lead items that we need to get in the supply chain to hit the schedule. So our opportunity to make HVAC value engineering decisions is very short. But there is opportunity. There is definitely opportunity there. The other thing that we might have a little longer leash on is they did an analysis. There's some PI funded work that's not part of these numbers, but is part of the project. And I think we can do quite a bit of.
So that's the phase 1 work that didn't happen there yet, right, Scott? You want to talk about that a little?
Yeah, just the HVA, we need to replace the unit vents at High Point. Blacklick is it's already in good shape. They don't have any unit vents, so we need to replace.
With that portable unit you have, that's in good shape.
That works, and we are replacing that with the new.
You guys know what univents are? Those big things like you see in like a hotel room with the blowout air.
They take up about 40 square feet.
The ones that's talking about don't look as good as the one in a hotel room. So,
So did I hear you say you're not going to use phase 2 money? You're going to look to use PI money to do?
Well,
No.
part of the project at High Point is we have to do the HVAC work. There is
that was on your plan to begin with.
yes,
right?
yeah. So it's on our plan, but we also have to do the addition work.
So that's the
HVAC work for the addition. So we waited a year to do the HVAC at High Point because it didn't make sense to design something that's then going to be added to. So we
Right.
wanted to make sure it was all designed to work together. With that, we're seeing huge numbers for HVAC. What I'm being told is, and Mark, you confirm this, ESSER funds, a lot of people are using those for HVAC, and It's just cranking up the price. Everybody is,
So you told me when we put these systems in recently, it was like $16 a square foot. Now it's like 30.
we were at $12.70 and it's now at $30 a square foot. So
So there's two things that are going on with that particular example. One is the market and maybe an opportunistic perspective on the ESSER funds, but the design with respect to High Point is much more elaborate than what has been done at Royal Manor and Goshen. So that's the opportunity that we're really trying to drill down on, drive costs down, because the market is what it is, but the scope can be modified. So we still have to have those conversations.
What's the timing of when value engineering, I guess, ends
Yeah,
and we have
A real number.
yeah. So I'm hoping that by the next time we have a finance committee meeting, we've got a much tighter number, if
Okay.
not the final number.
okay.
Yeah.
That just puts pressure on every other project, right? If we use a
It does.
substantial portion of our contingency this
does.
Yeah,
project, right?
yeah.
So
So let me just speak to that a little bit now. The elementary schools were expedited at a very quick pace.
what
And
do you
it-
mean by that?
So the design process was really truncated, as was just trying to get the construction started this last fall. We didn't get a chance to let the design mature a little bit more so that we wouldn't be GMPing the job with a big allowance. And then the other component is we got untimely geotechnical work done. So some of the design work was still waiting on that information. And had we had that earlier, or if the timeline to get the work in place was delayed, we would have a more forgiving schedule to let the documents mature, do a more thorough job from a price check perspective, exercise a higher degree of discipline on budget control, which is what we're doing on the middle schools and on the high school, because we have more time.
To get the classroom wings, we expedited things because we're packed at the seams at both High Point and Blackwood. And, remember we were gonna wait and order the steel for the classroom wings, and we decided to do a cement roofing
Yeah,
system
I like
instead.
what we're playing.
And so, that was part of it, is to try to get that in because we redistricted. So I mean, I think that's part of the expedited nature of it, right?
Yeah. The earlier the GMP, the softer it is historically, because the design is not matured, and you're trying to fill gaps and that has not yet been defined. And I'll give you another example of why the variance exists. So, there was a big rush to put this package out on the street, get a GMP in front of the board, get the materials needed in order to hit that start date and ultimately completion date. But there were still user group meetings that needed to happen as it relates to some of the interior spaces. Now, Rustilli had done estimates on that, but one example is there's a kiln room, and the summer set of documents had this kiln room just face with one door to the adjacent art room, but it did not have access to the other art room because it just honored the existing condition. So a common sense thing to do is to obviously provide access to that kiln room, make it a little bigger. Well, that all costs money. That wasn't in Rustilli's SD estimate, but it's something that ought to still be done, right? So that's why I'm suggesting that we're not going to get all of this back, because I'm anticipating that those kind of common sense design moves that took place between now and SD are going to want to be preserved. Yes.
I have one last question, and then I have to get out of here. Sorry, I have to leave early. But again, I was going to ask this earlier and I forgot. So talking about High Point, and I mean, I realize we're busting at the seams some. I mean, even though, you know, cost-wise, it may have been better to wait. I know that, you know, there's a joke that there's a first grade class like in a closet. They're not technically in a closet, but it is a small space.
Sure.
It definitely is. Saying all of that, I do have 2 kids at High Point, and I know, you know, we're in the winter and it's typically cold out, but recently it's been nicer and they have not been able to go outside because of the construction. Is there any end in sight for that?
Yeah, I
That's
think
being able to get back out again. We've been told it's because of the fumes, because maybe the construction workers are picking up stuff so the kids can't go out, which means then, you know, they're not getting out their energy of running around because they're stuck in their classroom, which means no mask break because they're inside. That's just, you know, what I hear a lot from parents at High Point, including myself. I feel that way. So
Yeah, one of the things that happened with High Point is the soil. You know, we went and did the geotech and, you know, they felt the soil was in good shape. Once we started digging in and started moving dirt, we got a lot of organics. So it's almost like, tell me if I'm wrong, but it's almost like they just knocked over the woods and just put dirt on top of it.
They buried it.
So not, you know, not having stable soil to set the new foundations on was a huge issue. So we have to come in and stabilize that soil. So we're removing a lot of that, and taking that away, bringing in new soil plus stabilizing it so that it'll have a strong foundation. So when we build it, we anticipate no more than another 2 weeks for that to be all done and then to be able to get outside on a regular basis. So.
Just in time for the rain.
Any other questions or comments or thoughts? Yes.
One question, 2 actually. The first is Daphne mentioned a $5 million contingency. Is that specifically for the elementaries and middle school, or tell me about that? Is
the
that
whole
all
project.
encompassing, including the high school as well?
Yes.
And we've already burned $2 million.
So we have
We have
not.
not burned $2 million.
Okay.
Remember, this is a draft. These aren't committed dollars by
Okay.
any stretch.
Potentially is what you're saying.
Yeah, I would say this is probably the worst case scenario.
I had the same thought, Catherine.
That's not what I wanted to hear. Okay, the other question that I had actually had to do with schedule. Can you back up to the high school schedule?
Sure. Oops.
So the meeting, the special meeting last week was very much a white knuckle experience for the 8th grade parents. And we're very acutely aware of the timeline. And so I'm very worried that the timeline, especially when you see an occupancy date of July, was that July 27th?
July 27th, yes.
That worries me very much.
Mhm.
So can you tell me about that? Why it's not spring as opposed to, you know, July 27th, because that's like a week before school. And I feel like if we miss that even by 1 week, we have evaporated an entire academic year. And that's very worrisome.
Yeah, let me just go to the detailed schedule. So obviously, if we can beat that, we will, right? And what we will endeavor to do is get FF&E moved in, activate the building as early as we can. Right now, it is being scheduled out for 7/27. It all depends on how we get started in the launch. I don't know if I can It will be tightly managed through the entire process. And we'll seek ways to improve on that. But with what we know right now, remember, we just approved SD. So this is basically a schematic level estimate as well. So as more detail comes in, we have a higher degree of conversations as far as what that move process looks like for the high school. Let's talk to furniture vendors, what kind of time do they need? That could potentially push that up.
So is it your observation that SD took longer than what we originally had budgeted for, Ben?
It did take
Yes, it did.
Okay.
We did a
Um,
2-minute drill in the first quarter.
I'm sorry,
I
what?
said, we did a 2-minute drill in the first quarter, to use a football analogy
Right.
for SD.
So I don't feel like we have any room for any more two-minute drills.
Pardon?
I don't feel like we have any room for any more of, experiences, any more delays. We haven't
That's
given ourselves the room to do that. And we've already lost a year to the supply chain, which we can't, we don't have any control over that.
Right.
That's a hard pill to swallow already. It's also a hard sell, especially to the freshman parents,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So now we have a whole new class. We've got the 8th grade parents who are worried about the same thing. Okay. So we cannot be complacent about timeline.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like we have got to be very mindful of making or beating that timeline. Okay.
For sure.
I feel like this needs to be plan B. Okay. Plan A needs to have an earlier certificate of occupancy. Because this gives us no room at all.
Mhm.
So if there's anything we can do to make this be a plan B and create a plan A where we get a certificate of occupancy early enough that it allows the teachers, especially, right?
Sure.
A little bit of time in the spring to adjust. Because you can't just pick up, if you've been a teacher in a high school for decades, you can't just pick up and move your life in, 5 days.
Well, when you
So
say the spring, you're asking for a certificate of
Yeah, that
occupancy in
won't
the
happen.
spring? So teachers can use it?
I'm asking for a certificate of occupancy that's way earlier than July
Yeah.
27th.
Yeah, okay. Well, like I said, this is a schematic level schedule. I hear you loud and clear.
Right.
We don't want to go down to the wire.
No,
Nobody
I
likes
don't.
that at all.
We can't afford
Yeah,
to
I
do that.
agree.
Because we have voters who have already heard that we're 1 year behind,
Mhm.
okay? So we can't afford to be 2 years behind.
Yeah,
So I think it's very important that we work towards beating that goal.
yeah. And really where all of that time is going to be solidified or improved is going to be over the next several months, where we are, as a team, being very disciplined about keeping things in motion. That is critically important.
Thank you. Is there anything we can do to help that?
Continue to provide wonderful support and feedback, and expressing your opinions on things. And when there are tough decisions to be made, we got to confront the issue, face the facts, and make those decisions. Those are the areas that I would.
I think that's a message that that decision makers, that needs to resonate with decision makers,
Sure.
that we cannot sit and ruminate on decisions.
Yeah.
Right? We need to move forward.
Well, and what we need to do as a team is make sure that those decisions are informed and that the information to make informed decisions is timely.
Right, and you've done a great job with that up to this point, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, sure.
Mark, can I ask for some clarification? I'm sorry, I don't
That's fine.
Yeah, yeah,
I
thank
was done, but I feel that that's extremely important. That's the whole reason why I came.
Mhm.
And we can't, honestly, the last couple of months have felt very slow. I feel like we have been dragging, not just the last 3 months, we've been dragging for the last 9 months. And so I feel like we need to pick up the pace and push forward to the finish line.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean, I'm not saying be fast, I'm not saying be sloppy, I'm not saying let's not vet things.
Right.
What I am saying is we have to be mindful and honor this timeline. That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you coming to work too. Really,
Thank
keep
you,
it doing, keep it up.
thank you.
Can I ask for some clarification? So you mentioned with the elementary school builds that we had a shorter period of DD, developmental design. I think that's what you said, right?
Yeah,
And that is
yeah.
what you think is contributing to this variance.
That's part of the reason, yes.
So how does DD phase it for the high school compared to DD? I mean, is that something?
So-
can you- is
so-
that an
so-
apples to apples comparison?
Well, it's a little different because what we're doing is we're actually expediting the site, the stadium. It's coinciding with DD. If you
Uh-huh.
recall, what was carried in the GMP for the elementary schools was actually an estimate on SD. So I think what we'll be able to do is carry DD values or have a sense of what the DD value is by the time we're doing these early GMPs.
Okay,
So we're mitigating a lot of that cost uncertainty.
okay.
And that's really why we're better off, I think, on these two projects.
How about at the middle school?
Same thing.
Okay,
Same
same as the high school.
Same as the high school, yeah.
It was just the elementaries because we were so, because we very much needed to get going as quickly as we did.
That's right.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense. And then my other question is, I loud and clear hear the point about the timing. I mean, July 27th is, I mean, I think
July
this
6th.
school year started on
Oh, July 6th.
August
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
13th or August 11th, so that's tight. I
It's very
totally
tight.
understand that.
Sure.
So my question is, where, like, in what of those bars do we have any opportunity to shorten that green line? Is there anywhere?
Well, one thing that, I guess this is, let's check something real quick.
Mark, if I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
So one thing that we can do is work with the city and their inspectors,
Mhm.
and maybe they can, hey, you know what, in this part of the building, you can start moving equipment in. This is good, we've tested everything, this part, and then you wouldn't get the final occupancy until like the 27th. But, they've been very good to work with us, like at Lincoln,
We did that there,
to
right?
let us start moving things in early so that teachers can start bringing their stuff. So
Yeah, let me show
I
you.
think there's things that we can work through to try to speed it up.
I want to draw attention to this green bar,
Yeah.
because the flag, to Scott's point, is the certificate of occupancy. To get a certificate of
Right.
occupancy, the AHJ, the authority having jurisdiction, needs to see furniture in place. They need to make sure that the life safety paths and the occupancy levels and all that signage is in place. But the end of construction is actually scheduled right here on the green bar. If you look at this date,
Yes,
June 16th.
okay.
Okay, so I just got you a little more breathing
Better.
room. I know you're one
Yeah.
spring. Actually,
Okay.
summer starts June 20th, so there's your spring date.
It is spring.
Great.
Let's go.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah,
late spring.
I apologize. I
Thank you.
apologize. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so Mark, FF&E is furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And so those are those final kind of touch things that
Yeah.
need to be installed and done. So the majority of the building will already be up. And so it's not that those things don't take time and a lot of deliberate, work, but
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
but that doesn't mean, because I think at Lincoln Elementary, Scott, you had permission to move a little more quickly. I remember we had the football team
Yeah,
carrying,
putting
the elevator
furniture
wasn't
together.
working, so they were carrying furniture upstairs and, you know, yeah. It was, we would have.
You know what, it worked out great. You know, they got paid.
Right.
Okay.
We would have had to commission the elevator early and then redo it, and it was something like $10,000.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was,
No, that's cool.
it
It
all
was a
worked
good
out.
workout for them.
Right.
I mean, the furniture company, I think they paid them $15 an hour
Mhm.
to do that
Good.
work, so
Nice.
it,
That's good.
it worked out well for everyone.
Yeah.
So,
I don't, I think we need like 5 football teams for this building, but more, but,
Do you have more?
No, that's it.
so I have a question, Mark. Can we, the occupancy or the delivery of the elementary schools, I think we need to talk about that just real quick before we close down. Those dates, I think, need to be talked about a little bit, because we're not exactly at the beginning of the school year with those, right?
That's right. I think one is September and the other is.
Yeah. September 12th, I think, and
Yeah.
then High Point, it took a while with the permit to get going, and it's
You're talking about the new academic wing.
new academic
Yes.
wing. So Blacklick would be September 12th, so that's a week after Labor Day, and High Point is October 17th.
So how does that work?
So the redistricting in phase 2
Mhm.
affects High Point.
Mhm.
So we would postpone redistricting phase 2 to the next year.
Okay.
And then what we would need to do is at Blacklick, we would need to, open the school year at the regular day, but then, pay teachers and custodians and maintenance folks and everybody, all hands on deck to make the move to the new wing on the 12th.
So does that mean,
And hopefully we can get that done sooner, but that's right now.
That's what we have to plan for.
does that at Blacklick mean that we continue to use the, I'm not gonna use modular,
Modulars.
thank you. I was like, the wrong word was coming out of my
Yeah,
mouth.
modulars.
The modulars, just for that couple months
Yes,
period.
yes, we would. Yeah.
How soon will we be able to get communication to staff and to families?
So it's this week, and we wanted to make sure everybody knew tonight, and then tomorrow.
So
communicate.
communication will go to staff this week, and then
Right.
how about to the families who were thinking that they
Same.
were going to be redistricted?
Yeah, this week as well.
Okay.
With the Y connected.
Yeah.
So I guess I do have one more thing.
Okay.
So I know that looking at these Gantt chart schedules is perhaps a little challenging to routinely do on a, no? Okay.
It's
No, they're
actually
great.
very helpful.
Yeah,
Okay.
we found them from
Okay.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
all right. Well, what I was going to suggest for our meetings is kind of having a little dashboard slide for each building, where we're talking about the schedule, and I can have the Gantt chart kind of look to it, but also addressing some of the design milestones, upcoming meetings, and then also the health of the budget. All in kind of a single snapshot. All of that data will be underwritten by, real schedules and robust Excel spreadsheets, which can be made available. But that was a thought that I had, and I just wanted to see if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's very helpful.
I think we would really appreciate getting
Sure.
project plans for each
Yep.
building, if that's the level you want to do with it, with the deadlines and the key deliverables and the budget information
Mhm. Yep.
for each one.
Okay,
So if you'll send that out, that would be great.
sure.
Yeah, it's hard to travel when we don't know what the map looks like.
Yeah.
Right.
This is very helpful.
Yeah, good.
Yes, yes. I do have two things. I did get a call from an officer of the Gahanna Historical Society and wondered if we could revisit that one-room schoolhouse
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
May I
So
get with Kimberly to set up meetings?
yeah, we can do that. I think Mrs. Hawk and I think Brian Larrick were involved, but I met with the whole society, so I can go there anybody wants to join me, we can,
I can talk to you afterwards.
yeah, we
about
can go and
who
meet
reached out
at
to me.
Lilystone and talk with them about, our challenges and, in the meantime, I can reach out to Brian, and,
Let's coordinate who
talk
it is,
after, yeah.
right?
Okay.
I do think we need to have Sharon and Tom Gregory
oh, okay. Sharon
participate
Kermit.
as well.
Yeah, sure.
Mhm. So I think
Yeah.
there was some miscommunication somewhere along the way, so if we can revisit that.
Sure.
All right, I'll reach out, figure out how to get
Mm-hmm.
a meeting set up. No, will be good. Any other board members have questions with regard to our agenda items? No? Okay, then we will adjourn. Thank you, Mark. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, sure.
First, I just have we have two things. First, I just have a question. Todd Emhoff, hello, Superintendent Barrett.
Yeah.
Do we know the, I don't know who would know this, the budget for Panorama Education?
You know what, that's not on our agenda tonight, but I think if you need to talk to
I think I have your email, Mr. Emhoff. I can
Yeah.
get to that. Yeah.
so we can only have conversation about the things that are on the budget. So tonight it was the
Agenda.
technology budget, phase 2, and the January financials.
Okay.
I can talk to you right after the
All
meeting.
right,
All right. Well, and this isn't directly on the budget, but we have some data here that will be good for everybody to have for Thursday night, but Kiara's put this together. She's a third grader at
is it related to the
Blackwood.
budget?
Agenda.
The agenda.
the agenda. No. it's
Okay, then you'll-
related to data that's, she's not gonna be able to get here to present.
Okay, if you give it to Steve, he'll make sure we all get it.
There's a
Okay.
copy here for everybody and you can just
All right.
pass it out.
So with that, yeah, thank you. With that,